Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Rooted and Rising with Kara Avery. I'm so glad that you have joined me today. We have talked about a few amazing topics. We've talked about the inner whisper. We've talked about letters to my becoming. We've talked about really building up your level of intimacy with yourself. And so today's episode is going to give you the same flex, right? You're still on a ride with me, on a journey through my healing process. And I'm going to be talking about self-perception and the mirror and understanding more about your own inner beauty. Because I think that in the process of reclaiming the voice, the beauty and how you see yourself is so important because it helps us to understand how we are navigating parts of that internal dialogue. And so I'm going to be sharing that with you today. Hello, and welcome back to the Rooted and Rising podcast with Kara Avery. You have been on this journey with me for 7 episodes so far. So I hope that you are staying tuned in and tapped in. I hope that the conversations have been engaging for you. In the previous episodes, I have shared with you talks around really reclaiming that inner whisper, some letters on establishing your becoming, kind of like starting to write letters to yourself just to kind of reprogram and shift some of the dialogue and the narrative that you're having every day. And then we've also talked about intimacy and how to begin to build trust with yourself again. Part of my own journey has been about understanding where parts of myself were missing, understanding some of the parts that I left within spaces of trauma, right? And so when I wanted to go back and reclaim those pieces of myself, I had to begin to listen. I had to begin to understand. I had to have so much self-awareness and accountability just to understand those components. But today we're going to talk about your self-perception, or my self-perception really, and how I began to really see myself differently as I've gone along in this journey, right? And what were the aspects and pieces of myself that I lost along the way that I needed to reclaim, right? And what was mirroring back to me within this experience also. And so even just starting the episode today, I had my prayer and my meditation time, and I said, Spirit, what do you really want me to share with everyone about my journey? What do you want me to be able to deliver? And one of the books, because I was like, I want to share some more books. One of the books that has been really pivotal in my growth and in my healing is this book. It's called Return to Love, and it's by Marianne Williamson. And it's reflections on the principles of A Course in Miracles. And if you haven't read it, I would suggest reading it. It's also in audiobook form, but it is truly an amazing book. And when I wouldn't say lost, but when I was really in a space where I was further away from love, this helped to bring me back. This helped to bring so much more into perspective. And so I opened up a page today, and this is what I want to share with you. It says, our self-perception determines our behavior. If we think we're small, limited, inadequate creatures, then we tend to behave that way. And the energy we radiate reflects those thoughts no matter what we do. If we think we're magnificent creatures with an infinite abundance of love and power to give, then we tend to behave that way. Once again, the energy around us reflects our state of awareness. And that's so true, because when I think about how I began to look at myself in the mirror, a lot of times previously when I was hurt or when I was minimizing my voice, right? When my voice was minimized, I saw myself as smaller. I saw myself as needing to show up in a way for people to love me. I saw myself as needing to show up in a way for people to accept me. I saw myself as needing to show up in a way for it to be digestible for people. And I wasn't really showing up as the big, authentic version of myself. I was not seeing this version of myself accurately. And so I started to kind of dissect that a little bit. One of the practices that I began was talking to myself in the mirror. And I would just go to the mirror and I just stand there and I look at myself every day. Every day I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was seeing who I saw. I was looking deeper into my own eyes, looking deeper into my own self. And then within that, also writing what I saw. What do I see about myself? What are my experiences like day to day? What's showing up for me in this moment? What am I feeling? What's happening for me in this moment? Where am I limiting myself in some of my conversations or in my ways of being? Questioning everything. Where did this come from? What did I think about this? How did I get on this pathway? And why are these aspects of me not relevant, right? There were parts of me that I just didn't feel like were relevant. And I needed to understand why I felt that way. And so, as I've mentioned to you all many, many times before, the journaling is such an important component to what I do, the writing, because it helps me to sit down, ask the questions, and then the universe supports me getting an answer. I want to share another excerpt of this page because I think that it's really important. Miracles themselves are not to be consciously directed. They occur as involuntary effects of a loving personality. So when we're thinking about asking for a miracle in our lives, when we're thinking about all of the things that we desire, the things that we hope for, how can we attain those things if we don't feel like we're worthy of them? And a large portion of how I saw myself within my beauty was also connected to my worthiness. For a long time, my beauty and how I saw myself was, I think it was more harmful, because for me, it felt like a barrier to people really knowing the truest version of me. I think that it was a limitation because I felt like people could only see the external version of me. And I always felt like the internal version of me was so much more beautiful, was so much more, that internal version of me was bigger than the external version of me that people saw. But most of the time, it always stopped there until they got a chance to truly get to know me, until they got a chance to truly have conversations with me. But I also limited that. I limited it and I felt like I needed to make this version of me and how I looked and how I showed up digestible for other people. And I think that was a hindrance in my own growth, right? That was a place where I needed to sit with myself a little bit more and relieve myself of that programming, because that's a program, right? That someone has told you or showed you that this portion of you, this limited piece of you, is what's the most relevant and the piece of you that you can utilize. And we see it all the time in so many spaces, right? We see it with so many celebrities when they begin to talk about their businesses and the things that they're doing, and women and how they show up in different spaces. And it's almost like there was this connotation between you couldn't look a certain way and be a certain way. You couldn't be beautiful and smart, right? And people have said that has come about in a lot of different spaces, and it's changed so significantly. But I think that once you feel it from an internal perspective, it can be very challenging for you. Also knowing that you can utilize that in certain situations to your advantage. But it doesn't always it doesn't always feel like it's going to help you to thrive and grow in the ways that are truly necessary for your well-being. So another component to this is that what is being mirrored back to you, right? What are you seeing when you're looking at your reflection in the mirror? Are you seeing something that's beautiful to you? Are your behaviors beautiful to you? For me, a lot of the things that I was feeling internally, I felt like they were projecting themselves outwardly, right? And I may have been looking a little bit more tired. I even look back now at some of the times when I may have been in a lot more depression than I knew, and how I looked and what my face looked like and how I was taking care of myself. And I looked inflamed, right? I looked puffy. I looked inflamed because I felt inflamed internally, right? I felt like my diet wasn't healthy. I wasn't taking care of myself with my diet. I wasn't taking care of my mind. I wasn't taking care of my spirit. I've always been a person that was either like in prayer or in meditation or but I didn't have a daily practice. And I think that having a daily practice and intentional time for yourself is so important. For me, it comes in the morning. Some people it comes mid-afternoon. Some people it can come in the evening. But for me, a very, very important part of this journey for me was taking the time to do my prayer and meditation in the mornings, and taking that time for myself to ground, to understand what messages were necessary for me. Sometimes I would even do my meditations in the middle of the day because I don't think that there would be a point for me to ignore them. But just having that spiritual time to connect in with myself was really important to me being able to progress into this next version. As I have begun to really sit with how I saw myself, it also made me realize and dissect some of my beliefs, right? What did I believe about myself? Did I believe that I was, as I spoke about, worthy of certain things? Did I believe that I was capable? Did I believe that I was really capable and able to achieve the things that I had set into my goals that I had wanted to kind of create for myself? And in sitting down and having some of those conversations, I noticed that some of the things that I desired, I didn't truly believe that I was worthy of. And I think that a lot of times we have to examine that. What's really important in this conversation, and one of the things that was really important for me as I began to see more of myself, was that I got a visual of the parts of me that were missing. And I think that a lot of times it's really hard to look at yourself. It's really hard to look at the parts of you that you may see that are missing. And those parts may have been there, but you're not acknowledging them, right? And these are all spaces for you to journal. These are all spaces for you to begin parts of your introspection. Because a lot of this journey has been about me looking inward to see what was happening that was influencing my external world. Why did I need so much control? Why did I need to mask myself? Why did I need to hide? Why did I minimize my voice? That was all a reflection of how I was feeling internally. And so when you look at your life externally and you're saying, what's happening that I either love or I don't desire or that I want to change, you're going to have to look inward. You're going to have to understand how that's happening for you internally and what needs to be balanced in how you're viewing yourself. One of the biggest things that I've talked about in a lot of spaces is that I can't love someone beyond the ways that I love myself. And so how do I need to love myself unconditionally so that I can love others unconditionally? And that goes from partnerships, that goes for family, that goes for our global community, right? If I want to love others as I love myself, and that's a part of that golden rule, most people aren't really loving themselves, and they're not loving themselves authentically and unconditionally. And so how do I begin to love myself unconditionally was looking at myself. And that started with me looking at myself in the mirror. And I remember having a conversation with a woman, and she said, you need to look at yourself in the mirror, because what you see, you are seeing shame. You are seeing a woman that has missed the mark, which is what sin is essentially. You are seeing this version of a woman that I don't see. She said, I see a goddess of Benin. Your skin has these beautiful gold tones in it. She was like, I see a woman that is made of magic. And I did not see that version. And I had to do a lot of healing to see that version of me. And so now, even when I wake up in the mirror, when I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, I see that woman, the beauty, the woman, the goddess of Benin, the woman that is claiming and sitting in her royalty, the woman that is showing up for herself daily and unapologetically in all ways, the woman that is allowing herself to rest when it is needed. I see the woman that is acknowledging so much more about herself, which is really, it's been a profound part of my journey. And it's going to segue into the next conversation that we're going to have, because it really helped me to find safety. And it has also really helped me to understand that I was capable of surrender, and that I had done enough, And so when you begin to look at yourself in the mirror, when you begin to have these conversations for yourself and that parts of that self-discovery, you are going to notice that you've achieved so much more than you give yourself credit for on a daily basis, just getting up and functioning. And so the one thing that I want you to take away is get introspective, understand that this is your journey, that you are accountable for your perception of yourself, that you do not have to believe anything that anyone else has told you, because you do not have to be connected to that belief, but you have to be able to be honest with yourself, to have the honest conversations and dialogue, and then shift that version of you in the mirror. All right, peace and blessings, everyone.